I believe because of that, the chances to actually get EPT points is coming to an end with those qualifiers on the horizon. But now
I think this might be the last week.
I think so. And now we're getting into our next series.
Indeed, we are. We're kicking it off on Alcione. Over here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, spawning all the way in the bottom left, we have our red Terran player coming out from the land of Korea. He, of course, is going to be representing his team, Team Vitality. We have Ryung.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have the Chinese Protoss player representing Mystery Gaming. It was once Cyan. Now he is Lancer.
Clearly, he drives a Mitsubishi.
True. Clearly, he enjoys riding horses.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Clearly, in Final Fantasy, he's a Dragoon.
Clearly, in Heroes of the Storm, Hearts of Pyre, he's a Protoss.
Phoenix, that's his name. Or not Phoenix, Talon. No, yeah, Phoenix is in Heroes of the Storm as well, though.
There you go. Now, what's the name of the game? It's it's Immortal Gates of Pyre. That's it.
Immortal, yeah.
Yeah, Immortal Gates of Pyre. So I think they have Lancers. I think that's what they call chargelets, basically. Like they have their own version of chargelets. I think called Lancers.
Are they on horses?
No.
Oh well.
I could just be horribly misremembering though. It's possible. Like, it's very possible. Wait, do they have Lancers in Stormgate? Am I crazy? They also have like a chargelet unit, right?
Yes. I want to say yes. Because here's the thing: I haven't played I haven't gone back into Stormgate since they released the third race just yet.
Wait, they released the third race?
Yeah, it's the Celestials, which, like, in-game, in the lore, they're similar to Protoss, but everybody has been, from what I've seen, everybody's saying that they play nothing like Protoss.
Okay. Like, visually, they look like Protoss, but, like, really...
Visually, yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. But anyway, as we were saying earlier, if you're curious, who is Lancer? Who is this person? Who is this man? Cyan. Cyan, the Chinese Protoss player, has gone for a bit of a name change. We did see a lot of players' name change when Oliveira won IM Katowice. And for those that are curious, I believe because of Oliveira's run in DreamHack, we also had Cyan, inspired to name change.
Yeah, Cyan, who I believe was qualified for IM Katowice as well this year. So. Pretty neat to see. I have to wonder why Lancer. I mean, it's similar to when Time changed his name to Oliveira, and all of us were wondering, like, why Oliveira? What's going on? And then we found out later on in an interview, he was just like, oh yeah, I like this UFC fighter, Oliveira. And I was like, okay then. It's probably gonna be the exact same thing here with Lancer.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm curious as to like where the name originates from, right? It's gonna be a curious one. But yeah, if you remember when Oliveira had his miracle run, that's where Blooming name changed to Oriana, right? And there was some other Chinese players as well that all name changed. I want to say Rewhite. Rewhite had a lot of names.
I want to say there was Rewhite. There was a Protoss player who wasn't called Zest, or Zest was in their name.
Young Zest?
Yeah, like a million name. Young Zest, there we go, that's what it was.
Yeah.
They changed it to, they changed it to something.
Potato.
They changed it to something, it was Potato, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I keep track of all these name changes.
Yeah, they like this
Nanami, I think?
Yeah, there was Nanami Chiaki, name changed to Moku. There's a lot. Like the majority of the Chinese players out there name change afterwards. It's a little bit disorienting, but
hard to keep track of all at once. It would have been easier if they all changed their name to UFC fighters.
True. Oh, that would have been amazing. Oh my god. That would have been massive. I would have loved that. But yeah, it's really cool to see that inspiration come in, and we'll see if that does spark some bit of a resurgence here for Cyan or Lancer. Before we get into things though, we do see Ryung going for a bit of a more aggressive build. Is already moving out right across the map. Stim is about to finish up in 5 seconds, and it's on Lancer to try to slow this down and pick away at the Marines.
Yeah, Ryung going for the 3-1-1, just pushing out with his initial units. No medevac support yet, as obviously you want to be hitting as soon as possible, and just to try to keep... You want to be hitting as soon as possible to apply pressure on your opponent, and yeah, you don't want to be taking too many big risks here as Ryung, as you do want to keep these units alive while the medevac's fly into position.
Oh yeah, zero overcharge is going to be pulled. We do Stim on forward here. We focus on the shield battery, and without the shield battery, we can focus on everything else. There's a backup shield battery behind this. The Immortal does take a lot of shots, and even though the Immortal goes down, it looks like Lancer will barely be able to hold on.
Just about. Yeah, this opening not really accomplishing too much here for Ryung, but hey, that's why we have a third base.
Yeah, third CC.
Getting a third base.
Yeah, third CC is on location. I mean, Ryung did at least kill the Immortal. Like, that was a good pick-off. Outside of that, as you mentioned, nothing too major here. As Lancer does survive, going to be able to counterattack, catch some reinforcements. Marines not quite getting picked off. Going for the Marauder, but oh, it does cost us another Stalker.
Like so.
Up.
Yeah, Concussive Shell really putting into work here. Stim chasing down these Stalkers as they try to escape, even despite the blink.
Yeah, exactly. There's a nice catch there from Ryung. Behind this, we're just settling into the rest of our setup here, or to the rest of our mid-game with that third TC, with our Raxes getting into Bio Mine. A very active style here out of Ryung. Speaking of active, is moving out with those drops.
Yeah, once again, just going to try to disorient Lancer and try to split his attention as much as possible. A little bit of an unfortunate trade here for our blue Protoss player, as he does lose a couple more Stalkers without trading too well.
Yeah, exactly. We got 2 SCVs, but for Stalkers, that wasn't quite worth it. Meanwhile, Lancer back at home, he's trying to stabilize, trying to build up his Robo units here with our first Colossus, soon to be a second. Extendo Malance is a couple of seconds away from finishing up as well, but is it going to be enough? More importantly, can we keep up with the movement of the Terran player? As Ryung, he's skirting around, bouncing between the bases and trying to catch Lancer off guard.
And I believe he's just barely been able to avoid that Observer, as well as Lance's army is not in position. Now moving back towards that natural base, but even still, Ryung is keeping him on his toes.
Oh yeah, the Observer barely catches the army of Ryung, so we can see Lancer rotating kind as well, so he's keeping up. Meanwhile, it looks like Ryung did peel off some Widow Mine, so he's poised to go for a mine drop into the natural. Bear that in mind as we are trying to keep tabs here on the army. Scan does not see the Observer.
Just misses it. It's always unfortunate when that happens. A little bit of a run by does get cancelled, or does get taken out here by Ryung. Mine drop gonna get 5 probes, not bad.
Yeah, 5 workers at the natural. We still have the Widow Mine going in behind the main base as well, so we have potential for more damage. At the same time, Lancer getting ready with his own Warp Prism drop across the map as well, so aggression is upon us. We'll wait to see when either one does pull the trigger, but Ryung isn't committing. He's just, posturing out of the map and being active, but building up towards Vikings, I imagine, and towards Ghosts, of course, as well.
Yeah, just trying to establish his map control right now, make sure that he can continue to expand and keep track of the expansions of his opponents.
Yeah, exactly. As Zelce do dive on top of the army, but Alice, they're going to be cleaned up. We were trying to go for a bit of a run, but at the same time, the Widowmine gets shut down. Nice defense out of Lancer. We do push forward. We have our 2 Colossus. We have Extendo Malance.
And a Warp Prism distracting a lot of the army, but Ryung has recognized the main threat and will be regrouping.
It does regroup. His Zelda cleaned up. They get 4 SCVs in the main. Not a bad amount of damage.
Yeah, not a bad amount of damage, but I'm sure Lancer was expecting more. I was expecting more, to be honest, as the Vikings are even going to catch the Warp Prism with Zealots inside.
Ooh. Yeah, the prism goes down. That's going to be another 4 zealots falling as well. Massive pick off here for Ryung. And with that, Ryung, now he has nothing to worry about. Now there's no war prism to threaten his bases, and he can focus on his main push. Isn't going for it yet, but is building up towards it. Meanwhile, Lancer, thankfully, is, oh my god, establishing the center base and getting into disruptive production.
Yeah, this gold base is going to pay off a ton. Not only is it very resource rich and will allow Lancer to rebuild his army as he trade some of these gateway units off for more high-tech, but also it's just a really good anchor point for a Protoss army, or an army in general.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's going to be great here for Lancer again, considering how heavily we invest into these Vikings as well. We at least will have some splash damage that the Vikings cannot deter or cannot zone away, but we'll see how good the Novas are going to be as we do land some EMPs.
A lot of health does get cut in half. Disruptors not quite able to land their Purification Novas, but as the army gets zoned back, as the Terran army gets zoned back, force fields go up and completely prevents Ryung from pressing his advantage. Now we see a massive counterattack of Zealots hammering Ryung's third base, and Ryung is only now starting to get a fourth base, so every bit of income for him, every worker counts.
Yeah, exactly. Zealots are cleaned up, but the army gets forced all the way back home. Nova's going to be going off once again. They will not connect. Vikings will shut down the Colossus eventually. What about the Gateway army as we can pick away at the Vikings? The army is looking quite overstimmed, but it looks like Lancer is forced back.
Yeah, the army is pretty overstinned, but it's still a fantastic concave. Both Colossus end up going down to the Vikings. I was worried for Ryung for a second. I thought, yo, he's making too many Vikings. He's got to calm down, build more ghosts and build more routers or whatever, but that ended up paying off.
Oh yeah, it did pay off in the end. We are cutting Vikings here at 3, and thankfully there are no more Colossus to worry about, so this is going to be great to at least deter any prism play, and now Ryung can settle on in. Did lose a lot of SCVs in the process. Lancer economically is keeping up, if not exceeding Ryung because of the gold base, but now has to get back into his robot production because, again, he lost a lot of his high-tech units in that fight.
Yeah, it's hard to really determine the math, right? Lancer, he's got the gold base, but Ryung, he's got mules.
True. That's a lot of mules.
He's got a lot of mules.
That's a lot of mules, Papi. Zealot Reinbar runs into a planetary. Ryung will force it back. Meanwhile, we're just doubling down on disruptors. No Storm, no High Templar. We're not going back into Colossus, even though now would be a really good moment, just because Ryung is on a very low Viking count. But last, we're just going to be committing on forward anyway. And can we break through this? The Novas this time, they connect.
And they connect a couple of units. And decent Novas here and there. Slowly but surely they can start to stack up, and it looks like, yeah, fortunately for Lancer, he doesn't quite have enough to keep this going, but he did manage to chip away at Ryung's army, make it bleed a little, and eventually, if he continues with his Colossus production like so, it's gonna stack up.
Yeah, I mean, as we mentioned, right, like, there are no more Vikings. The Viking count was reset, so now is a really good moment for those Colossus, but we do need a little bit more time, as we do see Ryung is pushing forward. At the same time, Rocks are being knocked down. Once again, Lancer's going for a big Zealot counterattack. Unfortunately, it's poised to hit the 4th, and there is that planetary up and running, so it's not going to be easy to bring down.
That it will not. Not quite getting the Venn diagram of sensor towers here. But still plenty of vision coming out here for Ryung. Ooh, big surround. As the Novas will get a lot of ghosts. Will get... Okay, not those ghosts, but still. Very juicy connection initially there for Lancer. Ryung was setting up for a massive surround and was not quite able to get it. The planetary gets fully surrounded. Repair was just too late.
Yeah, no repairs in time. The planetary does somehow fall. As you mentioned before, the Novas have been on point here for Cyan or for Lancer. Oh, the MPs are looking good here on these disruptors, but alas, we zone away the army and we are breaking through.
Yeah, we can get a pretty good concave until the Novas pop out. One more good Nova, but that's the only Nova that's really going to connect to the rest of this army. It looks like Lancer, though, has enough gateway units to keep this going. GG is called. Lancer will be taking game number 1.
GG, well played. Non-stop aggression there at a Lancer. I loved that whenever he was moving out with his main army, he always had Zealots coming in, either from the right-hand side, the left-hand side, towards the 3rd, towards the 4th base. There was always some kind of a Zealot harass going on, just either getting worker damage done, killing bases, or even just distracting Ryung and forcing him to split up his army, split up his attention, and that did lead to Lancer taking some better fights overall, so very impressive stuff there out of our Chinese Protoss.
Yeah, very much a reverse of dynamics here in PvT. Normally, we would expect a Terran player to be the one who is going for a lot of these multi-prong harasses to really stretch their Protoss opponent's attention thin, which I think Ryung was planning to do at the start of the game, but after a while, kind of, for whatever reason, decided I'm just going to build up my army and go for a massive push. And so instead, it was Lancer who was the one who was, as you said, picking apart Ryung's focus. Every time he pushed out with his army, just had a little contingent of zealots to really wreak havoc, or at the very least distract Ryung and make sure that he's not feeling comfortable as he pushed into him. And as a result, he was able to eventually overwhelm him. Plus, those Novas.
Oh yeah.
They were on point.
Especially towards the end, right? I feel like the first half of the game, the Novas were a little bit lackluster, but as the game went on, as the attention of Ryung was being split, like that's when the Novas were really connecting, getting some juicy shots on the main army. So really impressive stuff there by Lancer, and now we're getting into game number 2. As you mentioned, I'm just really impressed that Lancer was the player that was able to gain map control and able to be hyper aggressive. Usually we see the opposite, right, where we have like non-stop drop play and the Terran players being really active on the map, but alas, that was kind of taken away from Ryung, at least in game 1. We'll see if he can get it in game 2.
Indeed we shall. As we load into Crimson Court for game number 2. That's 2 series. Where Crimson Court is our second map. I'm gonna assume that's Ryung's map pick, but regardless, here we are now on Crimson Court, way over here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, spawning all the way in the bottom left. We of course have our red Terran player coming down from the land of Korea, currently down 0-1 in this best of 3 series. We have representing Team Vitality, it's Ryung.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have as opponent, we have the Chinese Protoss player, the blue Protoss representing Mystery Gaming. Used to go by Cyan, is now Lancer. And shout out to the chat, as we were told that, yes, Lancer is a unit in Stormgate for the human faction.
There we go. To ask you, Light, as a Final Fantasy aficionado, Cyan Mage, is that a thing?
There's Blue Mage. There's a Blue Mage.
There's Blue Mage.
Unfortunately, there's no Cyan.
There's no Cyan land.
Yeah. Is there... You know what the saddest thing about there no longer being a Cyan is, we used to have like different colors, like Azure, Crimson, and Cyan, and
yep.
Now that's not a thing anymore.
Cyan, yeah, Cyan versus Azure.
Yeah.
Both of them vying for the blue.
Yeah. It's good.
Cyan versus Crimson, where Crimson was blue and Cyan was red.
Yeah, like that was peak StarCraft, and now we're stripped away from that.
Cyan versus Yellow? No, Yellow was before. Way before.
Yeah. So we no longer have that color, like, kind of coordination going on, which is a bit of a shame. But you know, I think I'm like Lancer. It's growing on me. It's growing on me. I'm still like saying Cyan every now and then, but it's yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, I like it. I like it specifically because it's what Ares used to go by.
Yeah, and you know what? It could be worse. It could be Ratata.
Yeah.
One of the worst name changes in StarCraft 2 history.
We went from Vanya,
yeah,
cool,
which is cool,
awesome name,
yeah,
to Ratata, to Wayne, which is better than Ratata, but not as good as Vanya.
It's not as good as Vanya. It's not. Vanya was peak StarCraft, peak gaming,
absolute top.
Regardless,
some people are saying that Wayne sounds similar to Vanya-ish. That's why it's like,
it's like, well, why not just
go back to Vanya?
Yeah, exactly. Why just not go back? You know what Wayne is? Wayne is, it's basically, it's
a
like
trainer who owns a Ratata.
No, I was gonna say, it's going back to Vanya, but not wanting to accept that you made a wrong choice, and you don't want to you don't want to go back to that name, so you just go close enough, sort of thing. That's what Wayne is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah, we know, Vanya. We know what it means.
We've been there. Look, we've all been there.
Have we?
No comment.
It's a charge opener, by the way. It's not blink, it's charge.
It is,
We're popping
yeah.
up.
It's not blink, it's charge. We're looking to be aggressive. We have gonna have 4 gates behind us. Ryung, meanwhile, playing to play aggressive once again. I kind of like this Liberator. I'm not so sure about the tanks.
Yeah, we are sending it, by the way. We're sending everything across the map. Boys are being pulled as well off of what? It's a 1 base all in. 1 base all in out of Ryung. He's angry. He's upset after what happened in game 1. Very wild move here from our Terran player. And can we pull this off? Lancer has barely seen what's going on. Does have an army because of the charge opener. Charge, it's already done.
Yeah, I mean, this feels almost like a build order loss, but to be fair, Lancer doesn't really have a lot of charge hits to work with just yet. They are getting on top of the tank.
Yeah, the first tank
actually a huge pickoff here.
Yeah, the first tank goes down. We have the overcharge, which we haven't even spent yet. And here we go, the Stalkers. They can go ham on the army. They're going for the Lib. Lib is 1 volley away from going down. Liberator will fall.
Yeah, now the tank is out, but the Lib is down.
Yeah, backup shield batteries on the way, bearing in mind that there is no blink, but likewise, these are vanilla Marines. There is no stim either, and the longer this goes on, the better it is for Lancer. Another warp in. Immortals are on the way. We have the Prism to juggle or even try to go for a surround. Lancer, he's handling this quite well.
Yeah, he knows that he just needs to remain calm. He's got the advantage. He can just play out his game. He will be fine. Warp Prism does get scotted, though, and we do have the Viking, but it looks like Ryung just wants that extra DPS in the ground army.
Ooh, big tank shots, by the way. First volley, second volley going off. Second tank has arrived. We're gaining ground here. Lancer now in a bit of trouble. These tanks, they're building up, and they even have support of a bunker.
Yeah, Robo Facility does get depowered, and the shield batteries are starting to look exposed.
Yeah, they are quite exposed. The Prison coming in from behind. We do pick up some reinforcements at least, but we need more Zealots. We need more of a surround being set up. We do see Ryung rotating around, now getting up to 3 tanks.
Yeah, we just don't have enough production right now for Lancer. He's doing a good job of keeping the rest of his units alive, but I'm not sure if that's going to be enough.
Yeah, you can see additional gateways are on the way. We try to dive in, but alas, the Zealots are a little bit too late. The Immortals are being focused down, and Ryung, he is breaking through. He shuts down every single Stalker. The tanks are a bit exposed, but I'm not too sure if there's enough. There isn't!
That there is not. That Liberator right towards the end there, pulling its weight. GG. Ryung gonna tie us up sideways 1-1.
GG, well played. Ryung does tie us up with the 1 base all in. Things initially were looking good for Lancer. He shut down the first Lib, he shut down the first tank, but he did lose a little bit too much ground too quickly, and Ryung very quickly snowballed out of control by building up his tank count, getting the bunker up and running as well. And as you mentioned, Lancer just didn't have the production to keep up with the all-in of his opponent. He just couldn't warp in enough in time, couldn't just gain enough of an army, and yeah, things very quickly escalated there for Ryung.
Oh, yeah. There were a lot of moments where I was just really worried there for Ryung. First, he lost that Liberator, and that just meant that he had that much fewer units to keep his anchor point. Then he lost his initial tank, and I was like, oh, does he have enough to keep this going? He does have stim. And we have shield batteries, but Ryung, very patient towards the end there, kept the majority of his bio alive until he could get a bunker up, until he could get 2 tanks sieged, and then he went for it. And by that point, he just had way too strong of a backbone.
Yeah, you could
army.
You could definitely argue that the War Prism was a little bit lackluster, right? I think we saw the War Prism and we were like, yo, we're going for like a big warp in for a surround. We're gonna break this location, break these tanks. But the Prism didn't really come into play. Like the reinforcing warp ins didn't really come into play either. That also means that because we made a Prism, that means there was no Immortal, right? Or we could have had a faster Immortal, or even a second Immortal there, and that does eat into it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where we're used to that Warp Prism doing a lot because we're used to Warp Prisms coming in a lot later in the game, right? When a Protoss player has more than 2 base income and more than 4 gateway production, 4 charges warping in at a time, that is a bit lackluster. And if we could even afford 4 at a time, right? Because we still had to spend more minerals on shield batteries, more minerals on pylons. But anyway, that was game number 2. This is game number 3. We have one final map to settle. This round of 16, I believe, is where we're at right now. As we load into Site Delta, where we're here in the top left-hand corner map, spawning all the way. In the top left, we have our red Terran player coming down from the land of Korea. We, of course, he's, of course, going to be representing his team, Team Vitality. We have the Dongwon. It's Ryung.
And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have the Chinese Protoss player, the Blue Protoss, representing Mystery Gaming, being forced into a tied-up series. It is Lancer.
Here we go.
We are settling in, and it feels like a relatively fast series so far. We're in the ace match, but it's been a very intense series, maybe a better way of putting it. Very intense back and forth aggression from Ryung, aggression from Lancer, both in their own ways. And I'm excited to see how this story does end, as Ryung is going for, this time, a much more economic opener. This time, we're actually expanding.
Yeah, was it a Reaper expand? No, it was a Marine expand coming out here from Ryung.
Yeah.
So it makes sense why he is keeping it safe, building on the high ground.
Yeah, so a little bit of a greedier, or I should say, yeah, a safer, greedier build here. Without a Reaper, it means that Ryung has no vision. There's no SCV scout, there's no Reaper scout, so Ryung, he has no idea what Lancer is up to. He's not really too concerned with what Lancer is up to, as we're just building up back at home.
Yeah, just getting into things, settling down normally. Lancer finally doing normal Protoss things here by getting that Stargate.
Okay, Stargate opener out of Lancer makes sense. I mean, Site Delta is a much larger map, one of the more macro-oriented maps as well, so Phoenixes would make sense, but we can't rule out the possibility of an Oracle opener, which would be a little bit more aggressive here for Lancer, so we'll see what he does embrace. If it's Phoenixes, this could be the beginnings of Phoenix Colossus.
Yeah, a build that has been surging quite a bit in popularity. As the first Phoenix starts getting produced, it's surging a lot in popularity. It's just been a really, really strong way of shutting down aggression from the Terran player and then eventually going in for a very strong counterattack.
Yeah, it's been very meta for many years at this point. I'll be honest, I can't remember the last time it wasn't like kind of the go-to in PvT. It's just been so prevalent for so long, and you know, there are like waves of like popularity of it, where it's a little bit less trendy or a little bit more trendy, but you know, all things lead to road, and all PvTs eventually lead to this, so we'll see if that's what we embrace. It is not uncommon to go Phoenix Charge instead, so we'll keep an eye on that.
All things lead to road, yep. Yeah.
Rainer.
Exactly. Italy. Yep, as the Robo facility does get thrown down, so we should be seeing a Robo Bay, at least after the Phoenixes dip in and scout, see what's going on. Ryung taking this very seriously with the Cyclone and with the Viking as well.
Oh yeah, we got Cyclones, Vikings, Marines, Widowmines, everything shoots up here, and Ryung, even moving out with a bit of a push, is aware, of course, that Lancer is vulnerable. Like, Phoenixes are great at denying drops, but these early main pushes can be difficult, as Phoenixes, they pick up one unit at a time, and we do thankfully have a shield battery. We have the tools to defend, but it's going to come down to the control and to the micro.
Yeah, we have the tools to defend, but do we have the hands to use them?
Ooh, that's the question. As that is a lot of backup pylons and shield batteries.
Chat.
A lot of backup pylons and shield batteries on the way here for Lancer. Lancer taking this very seriously, going for a safety immortal. There's the Bay on the way for the Colossus production, and we do dive on in. Again, we're waiting for those mine shots to go off. So far, no big connections. Lancer doesn't take the bait.
Yeah, you can tell that this is not his first rodeo. This is not his first time facing a build like this, which I guess shouldn't be too much of a surprise. He does play in the region against Oliveira a lot, so And this is something that Oliveira does like to do quite a bit in TvP as well. Phoenixes, meanwhile, as Cyan, or Lancer, sorry, realizes that, hang on, if all your army's over here in my front line, you must not have much at home to defend, so sends his Phoenixes out, manages to get 6 SCVs, and keep all his Phoenixes alive.
Yeah, very nice counterattack there from Lancer, getting 6 SCVs, as you mentioned. The Observer has right, which means we can focus on the Winter Mines. First Winter Mine is lifted, the second Winter Mine shot is going to be going off on the Adept, but alas, with the help of the Immortal, we can force back the main army, and Lancer will expand and will defend.
He will. Getting away with everything here. The build, defending perfectly, not losing anything. His build has paid off massive dividends. Now starting to lose the Phoenixes, but at this point, I think that the Phoenixes have kind of served their purpose, so it's fine to sacrifice them if it means bleeding out more Cyclones, even taking out this medevac full of Marines!
Yeah, medevac goes down, Marines as well, and we're not done. We're still pushing in. What do we have on the high ground? No bunkers, no tanks, no nothing. We need time for that bunker. And Lancer, we could push in, but alas, he doesn't know how little we have to defend. He plays it safe, he pulls back, and he's just going to be harassing with the Phoenixes.
Like so. Delay these additional barracks, which is absolutely brutal right now for Ryung, as he does need to muster up as many units as he can right now.
Again, very fortunate. Lancer actually waiting for the Colossus. Interesting, but because we waited for the Colossus, we have Stim at +1 and Combat Shields. A bunch of upgrades just finished up for the Bio. With that, we have a much stronger force. Now we have a tank on the high ground. Now we have a bunker done on the low ground as well. So, alas, it looks like Ryung should be able to maintain himself, takes down the Observer, and even looking to expand and take a third.
Yeah, but Lancer has full eyes on this. He's gonna stay outside of field of vision. And, well, I was going to say, it's going to look to pounce on this third while it's undefended, but Ryung also taking this very seriously, making sure that his army is close by.
Yeah, he scans ahead of time as well. Lancer does rotate on forward. The tanks are going to be sieging in time. We have 2 tanks within range. With that, we should be able to hold on. The Phoenixes, though, they can try to lift the tanks. Alas, Lancer does back up.
Yeah, these Vikings can do such a good job of zoning them away. There aren't a lot of Stalkers on the ground to really punish those Vikings just yet, so yeah, Lancer, he's well aware that he has the map control, so he's willing to give up on the aggression for now. Keep Ryung. He knows that Ryung is going to be suffering economically only on 3 bases, while he works on getting a 4th of his own.
Yeah, Lancer's taking a 4th. He fans out all of his Phoenixes, just going to be skirting around the edge of the map, making sure there is no drop play. We do have map control in favor of the Protoss, and with that map control, we're just settling into a more robust army. More Colossus, we have the Forge, we have a Templar Archives. It's going to be for Storm, for Archon production as well. Interesting, so this time it looks like we're not going for a second Robo and Disruptor production, at least not yet, as Lancer's just refining his army, and Ryung back at home is still recovering.
Yeah, just saturating his 3rd, getting to his next phase of tech. Ghost Academy about to finish up. And I think we might end up seeing a bit of a repeat of game number 1 here, where Ryung, for whatever reason, in the past couple of months, has taken a bit of a different approach to TvP, where it's not super drop intensive, but more just focused on building into a very strong mid-game army and going for very powerful mid-game timing.
Oh yeah. And I mean, after losing the initial drops earlier, right, we're kind of forced into that position as well, where Ryung is in a way stuck at home, and we have all these Phoenixes, we have all these units being active on the map. It's going to be so difficult to actually get any drop play going, so Ryung will not take that risk. It does mean that Lancer, though, has a lot more time to build up and max out, and boy oh boy are we soon to max out. That's the 2nd Robo on the way. That should be for disruptive production. Likewise, the main army is spotted. Ryung is aware. He does scan ahead of time, and we're going to be able to keep up, but does Ryung have enough?
Yeah, well, maybe with a few well-placed EMPs. We do have High Templar, but no Storms. Good EMPs on the Sentries. Going to be able to prevent a force field. Yeah, a lot of buffer is falling right now for Lancer.
Yeah, the tanks are lifted. The Colossus go ham. The ground army, though, is going to be struggling, but here we go. Reinforcements have arrived. Zell taken on top of the forces. The tanks are looking exposed. It looks like we don't have enough, and Ryung, he's holding. He does hold.
He does hold. He loses 11 SCVs, but you know what? Mules.
True. He will be able to hold on. He will be able to recover. Meanwhile, Lancer committed quite hard there. Looking at the units lost tab, it looks like we lost 1 Colossus in the process. We lost every one of our Phoenixes, but we did at least retain 2 Colossus, and Lancer's going to be able to rebuild. Both players did come out a little bit worse for wear, but I think I want to favor Ryung's position here. Again, he retained the tanks and the ghosts.
Yeah, retained the tanks and the ghosts, and now he's landing his 4th base as well. Still behind economically compared to Lancer, lower worker count and technically a lower base count as well, but you never want to underestimate those mules, man.
True. We've been there before. You know, the mules are going to be kicking into high gear here for Ryung. He is just reproducing, rebuilding. Meanwhile, the disruptor production has begun, so Lancer has opted not to go for Storm. He's just going heavy robo here with those disruptors, with those balls. And as you mentioned before, things are looking a lot more closer here to game number 1. The downside is after that big fight, both players have to lick their wounds, so we have a little bit of downtime here before we build back up again.
Yeah, but you know what? That just means that when we do push out again, when we do end up getting that clash, it's gonna burn so much hotter and brighter.
Oh, that's the hope.
It's gonna be explosive.
That is the hope. Now, as we're building up our disruptor counts, that is a 3rd robo on the way for triple disruptor production. The best way to counteract a heavy ground army like this for Ryung would be to eventually work towards Liberators. We saw that we weren't able to get there in game 1. We were stuck with Bio Tank, and we're still kind of in that scenario.
Indeed, we were. He was eventually planning to go that direction, getting that fusion core earlier on, but like you said, he just was never able to actually produce those Liberators. Now we see the fusion core out once again. So Ryung does have that in mind, but it's still very much on the horizon.
Yeah, as you're alluding to, for the people in the chat, the fusion core is going to be for the Liberator range upgrade to get into Lib, so it's on the horizon, but it takes some time to get into as Zealots have peeled off. Zealots head into the mineral line. Oh!
Yeah, getting a couple of pickoffs, forcing a bit of friendly fire. Purification Nova's not quite landing yet, and yeah, once again, this mineral line is absolutely decimated.
Yeah, that's 18 SCVs going down. Lancer doing a great job there of just zoning Ryung away, just cutting him up from his own natural base. Zelta cleaned up, but that was 18 worker kills.
That's quite a lot. Lancer now up over 20 workers compared to Ryung, and obviously he does, of course, still have that base. I was going to say, this is kind of interesting from Ryung. I was going to say, I vaguely remember that he was getting that fusion core in game 1. But he used it to do what he's doing now, which is to get medevac upgrade.
I remember the same. Yeah, I remember the same thing. I'm caught a little bit off guard here, but yeah, the medevac upgrade is on the way instead for Ryung, which is catching me off guard as well. Meanwhile, we have a massive amount of Zealots. We have another Zealot counterattack set up here on the right hand side to go for the planetary. Likewise, Lancer is maxed out. And what do we see on the horizon? We have +1 air attack. We have a Stargates on the way and a fleet beacon. We're getting ready for Sky Toss.
That we are, and I'm not convinced Ryung is too aware of what's on the horizon, of what's to come.
Yeah, really...
Oh, there's Liberator range.
There we there we go. It is now on the way. At the same time, well, that's going to be a kill on the CC. 5th base is denied. Zealots were cleaned up, but as you mentioned, Ryung has not scattered the main base. And to be fair, we haven't commenced Sky Toss yet, but I mean, we have the tech, we have the production, we're ready for it whenever a fight does occur, whenever we're looking to remax.
Yeah, always going to be a bit of a silver bullet here for Lancer. Proxy does get scouted and shut down though, so that's one fewer thing for Ryung to really worry about.
Likewise, Zealot might get shut down as well, but Lancer has been freely expanding. He's been freely taking more bases. That double jump on the right hand side is actually headed towards the fringe base of Lancer. Lancer not quite in position, may force a recall as, okay, he's not too far behind. He's going to be able to keep up with the rotation. Alas, is going to bleed out some units, may even lose the base.
Yeah, I think he's going to end up losing. Yeah. His Protoss unit's just not quite fast enough. A couple of units left behind here from the side of Ryung, but that's what happens when you only have 2 medevacs.
Unfortunately, not enough room for everyone, but as we bleed out some units, as we bleed out some of the army, there it is. Carrier production has commenced, so Lancer's getting ready for the Sky Toss, and looking at the anti-air of Ryung, we do have bio, but we're very Marauder heavy. We're very Marauder heavy. We do have some Vikings, but not too many. Again, we're not fully prepared for Skytoss. That's not really what Ryung is focusing his attention on. And the longer this goes on without that being scattered, the more concerned I am for Ryung. The Memphis!
Especially concerned as the armies clash in the middle of the map. Purification Novas do get sent out, but Ryung able to split right at the last second. Not with that one though. And with just a sheer firepower coming out here from Lancer, he should be able to win this engagement. Where does he go from here though, as Ryung looking to surround this?
Yeah, he comes in from behind. The first flank was dealt with, but Colossus are finally going down. The Novas, they will not connect. The splits are too good. Ryung does manage to get away, does take down the Colossus, but that still went better. That still went in favor of Lancer. He still has an overwhelming Protoss army. The Disruptors, the Purification Novas are going to be going off once again, and here come the Carriers.
Carriers have arrived. I was going to go into this whole thing where it's like actually losing the Colossus is good for Lancer, not just because frees up some supply, but also can kind of trick Ryung into not remaking his Vikings. But yeah, his hand has been revealed, and Ryung, he was already getting those starports anyway, so quadruple Viking production has commenced, plus 2 ship weapons on in progress as well.
There we go. We're getting ready for the Mass Viking, but before that does occur, we see Lancer knocking down that front door. He has momentum on his side. We did weed out all the Disruptors, though, so we have limited splash damage. Without splash damage, the Bio army does stand strong. So Lancer doesn't have the ideal army, not yet. So, like, counterattack hits the northern bases. SCVs are going down. At the same time, Ryung, he goes for the dive.
Yeah, going to be able to take out one of these carriers, but he cannot afford to overextend. Thankfully, he does retreat back to the safety of that missile turret, so not going to be the end of that. Meanwhile, the base towards the north is somehow going to survive.
Yeah, the repairs this time are on point, so the planetary does live, but for how long? Because we have another wave coming in, this time with DTs.
That's all you really need.
True. That is all you really need here, as the base is going to go down, and we can try to keep on pushing. Ryung still trying to get his economy back up and running, still trying to reproduce here. Meanwhile, Lancer getting back into Disruptors and actually back into Colossus.
Huh. Well, I mean, I guess you want to diversify his splash damage, but at the same time, they're going to be vulnerable to those Vikings, so we'll see how... We'll see if it ends up being worth it here for Lancer.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I kind of prefer just like Skytoss with Disruptors. I don't think the Colossus are anywhere near as necessary here, but regardless, you know, Lancer is just incorporating them nonetheless. We'll see how well they can perform as we are reinforcing. Lancer has maxed out.
Yeah, but hear me out. The Colossus, they tank the Viking shots. Okay. And so then your carriers go ham.
No. The Colossus, they don't just tank the shots with Warp Prism Micro. You can just like nullify shots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is big brain.
As the army does engage, the Mass Viking is revealed and Lancer will retreat for the time being. This is where Storm can really come into play because unfortunately the Disruptors don't really have any anti-air, but we're going for the recall.
They will be heading over to this base towards the north, which is closer to Ryung's freshest base. Lancer looking to punish this.
Yeah, we do rotate over Ryung. He is out of position. The Vikings know where they need to be, and we're going for the northern planetary. Once we shut this down, we can take down the other CC as well.
Yeah, like you said, there's just nothing really in position to punish this. We still have... Okay, no Novas in the chamber anymore. Repairs are on point, keeping the planetary fortress alive, and Ryung's going to be able to beat this back, not losing too many units in the process.
Yeah, we were a little bit trigger happy with the Disruptors there. We sent out a lot of Novas and no big connections for Lancer. Meanwhile, Ryung, he barely does hold on.
Indeed, he does. Vikings looking to pounce on top of the carriers once they can. Huge EMPs. Ryung only going to be able to take out one of these carriers, though, as the Stalkers on the ground provide more than enough anti-air. Meanwhile, the Brumbai, the natural base will get cleaned up in the end here, but it distracts so many reinforcements as well.
Yeah, It does keep the reinforcements busy. Looking at the unit slots tab, only one carrier went down. The others did stand strong. Mothership is on the way, and there it is. Storm is now on the horizon as well. I was trying to say earlier that the downside of Disruptors and Colossus is none of that really shoots up. None of that affects those Vikings, but Storm does. So Storm is going to be a big factor coming into play soon here for Lancer. Meanwhile, Lancer taking every other base on the map.
Split map scenarios. It's not just for TVZ.
Yeah, the bases have been taken. Ryung still being active. Lancer on the flip side is keeping up with the rotation so far. Ryung does have quite a number of upgrades though. +3 ship weapons about to kick in, and with our Viking count out of 7, I'm still not sure if that's going to be quite enough Vikings here. I don't know if we have enough DPS against this amount of Skytoss.
Yeah, I highly doubt it. EMP is good, but it can only do so much.
As we even have some Dark Templar in the mix as well. There we go, we force out the first scan. The base is under fire, did bleed out some of the side defense, but regardless, Ryung is pushing forward, and Lancer, he's on the chase, he's looking to hunt this down. The EMP is going to be so crucial here against the entire army. How good are they going to be?
We shall find out. This is exactly where Ryung wants to fight. Lancer looking to pick a fight as well, but doesn't want to do so before he can get all his units in position. Ghost coming forward, just sacrificing themselves for the EMP, and I'm not sure if that was worth it, actually. Now the ground army starting to get cleared up. The Colossus, though, doing such a good job of keeping back the bio. GG is called in the end, and Lancer will be taking that series 2-1. GG.
GG, well played. Some insane storms and purification novice towards the end there. We saw some big connections on the Ghost, big connections on the Bio Army, and as you saw towards the end, it was just Marines and Marauders and a handful of Vikings up against the Skytoss army, and that one Colossus in the backline as well, to be fair. But we saw that the Protoss army of Lancer did overwhelm, and I mean, for the most part, Lancer was in control of the game. He had the base advantage. He was knocking down and making sure that Ryung did not have a secure economy, and Ryung had a really hard time maxing out. Even towards the end there, I don't think we were able to quite reach that max supply. Ryung was just on the back foot there, and once again, Lancer was just so active with his army, with his zealots. It was just a really aggressive style and really impressive stuff here at the Lancer.
Yeah, those Colossus ended up paying off. We were questioning it after he revealed his hand, after he forced all those Vikings out of Ryung. We were thinking, wait, why would he continue to make this? But if not for those Colossus, I do think that the Bio Army, the Marines specifically of Ryung, might have been able to stim for it, might have been able to take out all those carriers. So yeah, that was something that I think Ryung really underestimated towards the end there. I don't think he was expecting Storm quite yet either.
Yeah, I think the Storms did catch him off guard. I mean, it even caught me off guard. Like, the layered Storm plus Novas was insane, and it annihilated the Bio Army. And we spoke earlier about how, I mean, again, like, Ryung wasn't maxed out. He didn't have the opportunity to be, so his army was just smaller as well. He just did not have enough firepower there to go up against him, and with that, GG, well played. Congratulations. Lancer does take the series, and Lancer advances on into the next round. Where does he have an opponent? Do we have?
He does, in fact, have an opponent that has been updated. Dark, our most recent champion, has taken out Su 2-1, and now will be over here in the quarterfinals, or the round of 8 if you prefer, facing Lancer as those vetoes finish up. But that's not the only series update that we have on the bracket.